We must hold on to hope. We must stay engaged. We must always keep the faith in a better day to come. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not kidding.
President Biden spending his final full day in office today in the state that saved his political career, South Carolina. Tomorrow, he'll head to the Capitol Rotunda in the same limo, mind you, as President-elect Trump for the inauguration, planning to continue the presidential tradition of leaving Trump a letter, something Trump did 4 years ago for Biden, despite never acknowledging his election loss. But as Biden rides off into the proverbial sunset, tonight his ally, Congressman Jim Clyburn, is revealing what the president wishes he had done differently.
He has only one regret that he expressed to me, and that was the fact that he did not spend enough time on the politics of it. He thought that what he did was the right thing to do, and they were great, but he didn't explain it to the American people often enough, and the consequences of that he regrets.
My panel is back with me. Laura, what do you make of that statement? Is it an admission of perhaps not having done enough retail politics or something else?
I think it's a bit of that, but also, throughout the campaign, even before President Biden decided he was going to run again, there were so many Democrats that were warning, one, that the American public didn't know what he had passed. They weren't aware of all the aspects of the infrastructure bill. They weren't aware of the Medicare drug price negotiation, which on its own, allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices is incredibly popular. Again, those won't take effect until 2026 and 2027, but the American public didn't credit the president for any of that. There was that issue, but then there was also the issue that Democrats out in the field and working for different candidates said was that the messenger himself was President Biden himself. And I think that, obviously Democrats are going to run through the tape over and over again of whether or not it could have ended up differently if he had decided not to run. But there was always an issue with him as the messenger. And that was something that a number of Democrats were aware of in 2023 and early 2023.
South Carolina, what do you think?
No, I think first and foremost, one of the things I realized, I guess the race was November 5th or 6th, I don't know when it was, but the next morning I realized pretty quickly that no Democrat was going to win this race. And it's very difficult. We saw this, and you probably are more astute on this than I am, but we saw this in the 70 some odd elections around the world, that we saw things like inflation, the rise in prices, migration. But when 2/3 to 75% of people say that they were better off 4 years ago than they were today, you're going to see that shift away from incumbency, which we saw around the world. Democrats have a fundamental problem, though, that we haven't been able to shake, and it's going to be that much more difficult this go round, which is that we are not, and Congressman Clyburn hit the nail on the head, we are not good communicators. We do not articulate the things we've done well. The best example of that is not Joe Biden. The best example of that is actually one of the greatest political orators we've had in recent modern history, which is Barack Obama. I give you the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. No one knew what was in that. No one knew how powerful it was until Republicans tried to take it away from you. That is when we started to hear people talk about keeping your insurance till you're 26 and blah, blah, blah. But no one knew what was in it because Democrats failed to go out and do the retail politics to sell that.
The question is why? If that's the case, why? I've heard communication
because it requires us to get out of our ivory towers and go down and shake hands and meet people where they are. The reason it's going to be that much more difficult now is because, you have Republicans who not only have a Fox News juggernaut, but now they also control all the Sinclair media. Now they also control the Washington Post and the LA Times. Now they control Twitter and social media, IG. You see Mark Zuckerberg kowtowing towards the president of the United States. And so it's going to be much more difficult to actually message because we lost that battle. We thought we were prepared with Pod Save America and all those guys going up against the pod sphere of Joe Rogan, and we just got demolished.
How do you see it?
Okay, I was going to say, for you to say that the Republicans had an advantage in the media, right, in the mainstream media over the past 4 years is just...
That's not what I was saying.
Oh, okay, I'm just
No. And you can articulate whatever you want to talk about at the past. I'm talking about today. Yeah. You have Jeff Bezos stripping the Washington Post.
I think people, because they're selling what people want to buy, right? And let's push rewind on President Biden. I think when history goes back, you're going to, Joe Biden ran. If you remember the election in 20, it was a completely different world. Biden was running as a is kind of a bridge to the future. I'm a one-term president. I'm here. I'm your avuncular uncle, the person you like, Joe from Scranton. You remember me from the Senate. I'm a good guy everyone likes. I'm going to run, moderate, bring our country together, and then I'm going to pass the torch to somebody else. And then as soon as he got in there, something happened. He unzipped the suit and out popped like the love child of Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, right? And governed far left, hard left. America's a center-right country, so alienated tons of people. And then somewhere along the way became non-compos mentis, right? And if Joe Biden would have announced at the beginning, hey, I'm not running for election, given Democrats an opportunity to have a kind of a contested primary, get a really good, solid candidate, I think you'd had a chance. I'm not saying you'd win the election, but you'd have a much better chance, and you'd have because you have a bench, but now the bench it's kind of stagnated, and the Democrats are wandering in the wilderness looking for a spokesperson.
David, how do you see it?
So no one would ever confuse him with being the great communicator out here, obviously, and particularly in the past year to year and a half. At the time he most needed to be able to advertise the number of jobs that were created, the successes in infrastructure work, the seeds he planted, to use the phrase that he used himself the other day. He was the least capable one of being able to go do it. Second, he never really gave an explanation about why he was running for a second term. As David suggested, he was supposed to be a transition candidate. He came to believe that he was a transformative president. History might show him as that, but he never explained why it was that he wasn't acting as the bridge. And when he finally had to go do it, it was obviously a bit too late, and the party wasn't ready for that moment.
The blessing of all of this, though, is that the Democratic Party, contrary to the obituaries that mainstream media are now writing, is not dead. You still have Gretchen Whitmer. You still have Josh Shapiro. You still have Wes Moore. I mean, you have, and we're not even talking about the mayors such as Frank Scott in Little Rock or Chokwe Lumumba or Randall Wolfen or Andre Dickens, et cetera, et cetera. So I think the future is bright. We just have to be able to see it for the clouds.
Well, we will see. Everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight on the